Good afternoon, everyone. This is a special video teleconference work session meeting of the Franklin County Fiscal Court to review the administrative code. There will be no action taken during this work session. And let's call this meeting to order. And so the administrative code, you all were asked to send in any information, any ideas, and thoughts about changes to the administrative code. We received none.
Yes, right here.
And if you have one, and if you're just now turning it in like Lambert, we'll get it in a minute because we already have some others that we'll go through first. Tamara, I'll let you go through
Okay.
what over the year has been brought to your attention as
Okay.
part of administrative code.
All right. The first one actually came from the treasurer, Susan Lawrence. She attended a treasurer's conference, and one of the things discussed was county property and having a sign off on it to agree to return it, which I think we probably all think people would do that anyways, but we probably need some type of policy in place to protect us and ensure that the employees are any county owned property upon termination.
Oh,
You're talking like employees,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Susan, are you on?
like employees, like shirts.
Susan
and
Lawrence.
keys,
Do you
things
have-
like that.
Did you get the packet?
I got this packet. I mean, I thought it was on administrative.
Tamara,
Yeah.
Did you get Susan Lawrence? Susan? I don't think she
But it
knows.
has a lot of other things in there too.
So, yes, so the admin code pertains
All
to
right.
employees.
Andrew, would you get Susan Lawrence and on Amber?
There she is, she's in the hall.
Okay.
Okay.
Susan, you have a recommendation for the administrative code? Go ahead, Susan.
Basically, this would be to establish a formal policy for when new employees are hired and existing employees that are here, that they sign off on documentation that they acknowledge that they are be assigned certain kind of property, and then hold them accountable for making their return of that county property when they separate. This policy is an example from Nelson County, that they use. And it is basically just identifies what they're assigned and that they'll return it when they leave. We have a really good example in tonight's court bills about, I don't know, $2,500 or something like that for a single radio. So they're important, and I use a $1,000 computer, you know, so there's some significant expensive equipment that is assigned to employees. And so
Did they take home?
well, they may or may not take it home. Radios may be in their vehicle or on the body while they come in, but ultimately there's a lot of equipment that's specifically assigned to individuals
Okay.
that, you know, that they have use of and that may or may not be returned when they separate. I use the jail because there's a whole lot of people coming and going there. Farmer,
Question. So we do something similar at our business,
okay,
but we used to hold their paychecks until they returned everything. We were instructed that's illegal. So I guess my question is, if you say, you know, you have to return everything, is there any way to enforce that?
That's an excellent question.
What's the stick instead of the carrot? What's the
That's
stick?
exactly right.
No, that is an excellent question. And it was a problem when I first started here where we attempted to do the very same thing. It happened to be the jail and happened to be a radio
Okay.
because they're expensive. And no, you have to, first of all, you have to have a written agreement
Mhm.
up front.
Mhm.
So that's signed by the employee. So that's a big part of the step. And then from that, and Nelson County, I believe, has tested theirs for compliance with just what you said for Human Resources and Fair Labor Standards Act and that sort of thing. You can't reduce their pay. So that little nuance there, you can't reduce their pay. But if they've signed off on the equipment and the value of the equipment, you do have a recourse, a better chance of a recourse of some sort for withholding as a reimbursement, to the county for that particular item.
Does it have to be specific, or can it just be at the beginning of employment? Or does it have to be, you
Catch
were
all for all the equipment.
correct? Just anything that's given to you by Franklin County, fiscal court in your
I don't-
possession?
I-
Because to me, that would be a lot easier if, let's say, HR could do that from the get-go, then let's just say the fire department has to do it every time they issue something.
Well, chief, I don't know.
I'm just
how-
using you as an
if-
example.
Yeah, if you all have a policy now in place for handling that or any kind of equipment or anything.
The main equipment that causes expense for us is fire gear. Most times when people leave our department, if they're going to another department or they're retired, they don't have any use for it. I think about it one time in the past that somebody failed to turn their gear back in.
So Susan, it looked to me like the way Nelson County had written it, it would be a part of a new employee packet that they would sign this agreement, whomever they are, what doesn't matter what department they're in, but they would sign that as part of their signing up for work, coming in and doing their paperwork.
Yeah, I think that would certainly be a good process at the outset, but then as you're employed, there's other inventory items that may be assigned to you that maybe you could have a supplemental sign off for, but I think that this policy at least is a good process first step, specifically for items like the radios and for the, bigger equipment items. This is inventory time of the year. So technically, there should be some accountability at the end of the year when people do inventory, but that may not always be the case.
When I worked for state government, I had a laptop as well as a desktop because I traveled a lot. I had a BlackBerry back in the day, had a pager at one time. Embarrassed to say that, and a cell phone and a variety of. I did have a bag phone. I think I had it when the first one came. So I had to sign a document. And then, of course, all of that was depending on the value, had an inventory tag, and there was an insurance issue with it, because so there is a cost to all this, so.
Sure.
And before I separated, I had to turn that in before I left, and, I don't know, I don't recall what the penalty was for me not turning it in. I mean, I turned it all in, but I know I had to sign something.
Well, who kept up with your signed documents? Was it human resources?
My supervisor, because that's who I had to turn it into, because they had to sign off that they received it also.
The signed document when you were employed?
Yes.
Or just
It-
when
I'm
you
sure it
got
was kept,
your-
I don't know if they kept it in my personnel file or if my supervisor kept it in a personnel or in a file that they had on each of us. It could have been equipment, it could have been on each person. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just know that I had to sign that and then they signed that it was returned.
oh, then it was returned.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, it wasn't like in a million pieces. I would stomp it and break it or drop it in the
Well,
garage or any
and
of
that's
that.
a good point, and I don't, when you Google this, topic, you do see there are some cases, and I'm sure you guys have heard about when there's a transfer of power, it can either be pleasant or unpleasant, and certain sabotage
I've
things
gone
happen,
through several.
That's the-
unfortunately.
That's the thing. I mean, it said something about was returned in good working condition or similar condition to upon receipt, or there
Yeah.
was some language in there
Oh,
about
that
that.
makes sense, yeah.
But this item came across my desk a number of months ago, and I pushed it out as, for the June topic. And I haven't reached back out to Nelson County to see, what kind of experience they've had with it, but I just trusted the format that they had and thought it would be a good policy that we would go ahead and have in place. In particular, that signing on the front end,
With all new employees, all.
Well, existing employees too,
Existing
and now is a
employees,
good time of the year to do it because we're doing inventory. So do it in conjunction with, the inventory accounting.
Rick, what say you? I think,
Judge, I think it's a really, pardon me, that's a rude way to, I think that's a really good idea to give people actual notice of what their obligations are. if they do remove and retain county-owned property as part of their employment, they're always subject to criminal law. But to have that on the front end, I think it's a nice guidepost to remind people. Your problem if you do it, even if you don't do it, they're still subject to criminal law, is I think you have to go over time when different items are exchanged, other items are given, et cetera. So you got to have a pretty good track of it to know what's allegedly taken away. And it could be shirts, it could be shoes, it could be radios, it could be computers, anything like that. You just have to keep a good track of it.
And that would be more incumbent upon department heads on that part.
It goes in line with inventory, it really, it's kind of, you know, it's, the extra step is signing off on it, you know, as opposed to going around and counting everything and not having a sign off, so. I mean, for the individual employees, and not just someone who's going around counting chairs.
Yeah.
You know, so.
People do that.
We've got it on chairs too.
Yes, on every single chair in here, Pam Polly comes in here and spends about a
Yeah.
week going through every piece of furniture in this building.
So let me ask Stephen and Chief here. Your guys get uniforms. And so do you expect them to turn their used clothing back into you all when they leave? You do? You do, no matter what and do you all?
Depending on condition, ours, you know, they can wear out fairly quick, but, you know, a lot of them will turn them back into one of the other departments. They don't necessarily have another use for them or if they're retiring. But historically, I don't know if that's ever been tracked for us.
I think that it should be a policy to have them return, because if you have employees who have terminated employment, they could go out and pose as county employees and have those fire uniforms or road uniforms, so that may not be a good thing to have.
Do,
Did you come with any suggested text for the administrative code?
Sorry, I didn't bring it with me. Was it distributed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
so
yes.
one of the issues
Okay.
I'm gonna ask, and I think I have seen it where you do. What happens if an employee leaves, but they get a jacket issued and their name is on
Ah,
it? And,
well, I did have the
and
part.
so does that happen with you all?
No.
Because that does happen
Ours
with you
isn't
all.
assigned names.
You what?
You know, we have had it where people have turned jackets back in and we've taken them and had the name removed and then redistributed that to another newer employee who may not have a jacket yet or.
Okay, so you can get the name removed then?
Yes.
It's not-
Yeah, there's a vendor in town that is able to remove those.
Okay.
If we need to.
Okay,
Judge, we do something similar, but we always want them back because sometimes people don't leave under good terms.
I
And
understand.
we don't want to see somebody in a lineup with one of our shirts on, to
Yeah,
tell you the truth.
yeah.
So even if we get them back, we'll turn them into rags or
Yeah.
something, but we'd rather have them
Rather
just
have
because,
it back.
yeah,
Okay,
just, you never know.
true.
What do you
If intervening crime to impersonate public or official government people, that's separate than just the thieving, but that stands on its own too.
So what do you guys think? You want to have Rick look at this and come up with a policy?
I like it.
I like it too.
Rick, can you do that?
Yes, sir. I just need, like I said, just need some guidance, but yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Okay,
And like I said, I think it's a good idea, at least as a starting point, so everybody's on the same level.
department heads, you all okay with it?
I think it would have to have its benefits, especially with our expensive stuff like our fire gear. It would definitely help making sure we recover that if an employee does leave.
Stephen?
But they have to be assigned specifically to a certain employee for them to be
Held accountable.
responsible.
Yes, ma'am.
Held accountable.
Yeah, this, you've got a good point here.
Well, that's what you said.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions on that one? All right, let's move to the next one.
Oh, no, Squad Tracy.
Oh, Squad Tracy, I'm sorry.
Is in regards to who's going to oversee the documentation. Obviously, personnel has a personnel file. Does each department head have a file on each employee? Or is it gonna be like, you start with Betty Jo, you end with Betty Jo, and you do your exit interview? So would the department head come to downtown with the employee and basically go off the checklist? That way it's, how is the process gonna
Good point.
be worked out? I mean, I would think she's got all the paperwork on the employee. She probably needs that inventory list.
Judge,
for the exit interview.
Yeah, Manny, I was wondering if you'd want to answer that question.
yeah, I'm on. What I will need, I can put that with the new hire, we're talking about the new hires right now. I can put that with the new hire paperwork. When they sign off on the administrative code, they can sign off on that policy, because we do have to have that signed off before we can take anything away from their paycheck. If we don't have that specifically policy that they permit, Franklin County to take it out of their paycheck, we cannot do that.
Ooh, I would not recommend that. That's a bad idea.
Well, okay, but I
No.
cannot give it to payroll to process if I do
Oh.
not have a signed form saying that we can take anything out of their, if they don't return the items.
If they don't, we've got a little document over here. I sent it to the judge. It's called a warrant. That seems very effective. But you're going to run into great trouble at the point where you start cutting people's pay on a non-liquidated debt.
Well, I'm sorry, I think that's what I'm reading. Isn't that what you all want it to do?
What it
The
says.
issue was who keeps the records and who's responsible for
Right.
the records.
So this, what you have in this first bullet point is just the policy that Nelson County used as an example. This is not a policy that anybody here, Betty Jo, has requested. This is not anybody else's wording other than Nelson County. And currently, Pam Polly keeps the inventory for every department.
Wow.
So she will send out the inventory sheets to each department. They are then responsible to go in and verify that they have every single item that's on that. They sign off on that. So it may be also good to place some type of statement on that inventory sheet stating that they acknowledge they were responsible for these items, and upon termination or separation of employment, will return them. Some type of wording there also, in addition to an admin code, because upon employment, you may not start out with a laptop and a cell phone, but a couple of years down the road, you may.
The question is though.
No,
Hold on a minute. Rick is saying one thing. This particular Nelson County ordinance says another. And we need a stick as opposed to a carrot to make sure that people do that. Just like Squire Muller saying, in his business, they deduct their pay. And make.
We used to, but we don't anymore. It's
Yeah.
not legal. It's not
Thank
legal.
you, Barr. Correct. I think it's a good starting point to have a policy saying you receive certain items or you've exchanged certain items over the course of your employment. And so on a given date, you can say, okay, somebody's got such an item. And certainly far be it for me to think people leave involuntarily. People change all the time. That's fine. But on that day, you go, okay, now here's your items that you got, and please return it, prior to your departure. Beyond that, I think it's troublesome because you still have the underlying charge and or a warrant or a suit in law if you need it.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was getting at. I was just reading this and I was under the impression that we had a few that was wanting us to mirror the Nelson County. So I apologize on that. I thought that's what we was wanting to do on that.
I would be very not encouraged to do it in that fashion, but I'd be glad to take a look at it and see what.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rick. That's what I was saying. We can't do that unless we have something that they sign off on. I was just thinking that if the department head would send me something of what they have, I can put that in their file. So we can have it down here too. I could put it in their personnel file here because I won't know what they received. If the department head can send me a list of everything, and then I can put that in their personnel file here too, and they can keep it at their location also.
That's what we were asking.
Squire Sebastian?
I was just gonna say that's how it worked where I was at in state government. if I was assigned a laptop, my supervisor, the cabinet secretary, had a list of all the stuff that I had. And then when I left or they left, it just got transferred over to the new cabinet secretary. And then when I ultimately retired, there was my list, laptop, cell phone, those things. And I had to turn it by, and it had serial numbers, it had all that stuff, property inventory tag, serial numbers, when there was a statement on there, this has been returned in good working condition or operable or inoperable or whatever, and that had to be, marked, checked. I had to sign it and then they signed it.
So Rick, you're saying legally you can't hold people's pay if they don't return items that they're responsible for?
Well, that is correct. Can't hold their pay. And then the idea of getting reimbursed for it also is problematic because how do you value it? I've had the cell phone or whatever for however, that's mine, that's not the county's, for however long. What's it worth now? It costs something, but what's it worth now? And what am I going to charge? Isn't it going to be replacing the cost, or is it going to be what it costs to begin with? You're going to depreciate it, or all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted this as, like you say, as a starting point. Have the county attorney look at some good language, get something going in a process, and I think it brings awareness to the employees about, treat stuff like it's your own. You don't leave your own cell phone laying around if you get stolen or lost or run over by a truck. So just treat things the same way and have them aware of it and their accountability in that inventory process.
It would
Okay,
be very problematic to hold people's pay without a liquidated judgment or debt. I think that's the problem, and that's the thing that can be avoided.
We're not going to hold their pay. We're just going to have a process of accountability that they sign off on receiving county property.
That's what you're asking for.
That is pretty much what I'm asking.
She's not asking for reimbursement.
No, it won't be, you can't withhold the pay ever. Getting reimbursed is different than withholding.
You are asking for reimbursement.
I think that there should be something like that. We can look at exact, Betty Jo is a part of a professional organization and has access to a lot of information and guidance as well, and can probably offer sample language from, what do you call it, SHRM or whatever you call it, the Human Resources professional organization. And certainly IRS guidance, provides that as well. We're pretty lax in how.
Square Mall, what do you
where
do if
everything's
they
going
don't turn their stuff in?
with everything. So this will be.
Honestly, I don't think we have any repercussion, but most of ours is shirts and stuff, so it's really not worth going through like a legality lawsuit like Rick's saying, but if it's a laptop or radio or something, then I think it'd be worth the while. But yeah, we had to stop doing the paychecks. I still say that probably, but legally we can't do it, so we don't have much trouble there.
Okay. Rick, so if you take a look at that.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. No worries.
Okay, thank you. Let's go. We've got 3 or 4 more in 30 minutes. Let's do what we can to talk and come up with some ideas on it. Tamara?
All right, the next one is something that Lambert has brought up several times during this review, to change the COLA to only be applied to the compensation scale every other year. That was also recommended by the Johansson Group.
Oh, a COLA for every other year.
Right, to be applied to the scale. To the scale, so the scale moves up every year or anytime a COLA is issued.
Let's see.
So this would only impact that scale every other year.
The way it separates the new hires from someone that was hired a year ago.
And that is a big problem.
That's what Johansson Group said, recommended that you do as part of keeping the compensation rate growing, but not where it's hurting people that have been here a while. I guess that's thoughts on that one.
I'm for it.
Oh, see the I see the troublesome light now. First time
The rainbow.
across camera. You're doing something.
I'm rainbows and butterflies over here.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anybody say anything, so does that mean everybody's okay with it? That means nobody likes it, or why? Why is nobody saying
I
anything?
don't
I think that this is for vacant positions, correct?
Right.
Okay. That, it wasn't, I just wanted.
This is the actual
No, what?
scale,
The
the
scale.
scale that
No,
is
it's not.
Oh,
set.
the scale, so it's
So
not,
starting pay at the road department is $12 an hour.
Mhm.
And you hire somebody at $12 an hour and they've been there for a year, they get a 2% raise. The scale, their pay go up 2%, but the scale stay the same till next year when that employee gets another 5% or whatever, the scale would get it too. That way that he's not making the same pay as someone that was hired 3 years after him.
Everybody understand that?
Say that one more time.
Is that how
I
it's
just
done?
want to be
Really?
100% sure.
Let's
that
just
I-
say starting pay is $10 an hour. So if you started at $10 an hour and the scale moves up, whatever increments given to $10.50 an hour. So now you're making $10.50 an hour, but also the scale came up and you've been at this job for 2 years. The new hire comes in making the exact same amount as you, that $10.50 an hour, because it was applied to that scale every year. So every year that you move up, so does the scale. So there's nothing to separate you where you're at versus the new incoming position. And it would be every other year. And by doing every other year, it helps to prevent the pay compression.
So what happens when you don't do, if we don't do this, the department will come and say, we need a correction because I've got 3-year employees making the same as a starting employee.
And Stephen, it really
5-year
showed
employee.
in your all from the road department really quick, didn't it?
yeah, it did. Can we get that? I know how to.
That's why it's
I
neat.
don't think that's gonna solve
We ever
that
get that?
problem. Every other year.
Yeah, I don't
COLA.
think so.
I don't think that's gonna solve.
Why
the
isn't
problem.
it?
Because you can't hire people just when the year that the COLA's changed. You know, they might be hired the same year the COLA's changed, you know, it's not gonna work out.
Well, it's not, nothing, there's no perfect crime, there's no
That's
perfect
true.
solution to
They're putting
everything.
it in administrative code as a solution, and it's not a solution.
It's,
Well, what, I understand what you're saying, but you gotta remember that one, the way I'm looking at it, and I may be wrong, but I'm looking at it as if you were hired in 2022 and you started $10 an hour, and the employees in 2022 have received a 7% cost of living raise, okay? And at $10 an hour, so those come in at 10, those are making 10.70, and you're making $10 an hour. The next year, a 2% COLA comes in. So the 10% COLA would be $10 plus 20 cents, so $10.20 an hour would be the starting pay. But the person that came in the year before would be making $10.90 an hour. You see what I'm saying? So there is a separation there because of you did 1 year separation. Am I wrong on that? Are you all seeing it that way? Stephen, that's what you all recommend. That's what you're recommending, right?
yes.
You see what I'm saying, Marty?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Susan, you're a mathematician. Do you see it that way?
You're a mathematician.
I'm not that particular. It's a good start at a process that may be fine tuned later on as you all address more issues with the pay scale and longevity and so forth. So I think Sparmore's suggestion is a good suggestion, and I have heard it from the professional group that you do have to revisit. And isn't that correct, Betty Jo? I mean, that the Johansson group said you have to apply that COLA at intervals to your pay scale. And I believe that that's the effective way that the city conducts theirs as well. It's at intervals. It's not
What's
every
their
single
interval?
year.
Do you know what their interval is?
I do not. I don't know if it's 2 years, like what Ms. Farmore said.
3 years, could be 3 years.
It could, possibly it could. Now, I don't know when you have things like right now, when what percentage you use, we're in some weird times. So,
Okay.
1 year, I don't know. Well, the constitutional raises, was it like just, it wasn't negative, was it? We talked about it
It
though.
has been flat, not
Yeah.
negative. It-
Yeah,
it's
you just
Been
went
flat
up
several
down.
times.
Didn't have to give money back, but,
But you did because your taxes went up. at the time.
but this isn't based on the CPI, standard of,
Right.
US Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is based on
What,
fiscal court's COLA
right.
determination.
So then, Judge, who comes up with the verbiage? Because I don't know if this
We'll
line.
work, no, that
Yeah,
is not
I
at
mean,
all the
so
verbiage. We'll
some-
just have to go through, find
Okay.
that
These are
section.
concepts.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Just remember, as you all hire people, one of the problems that you have to face in terms of getting qualified hires to take the same position is their cost have increased too. It's really easy to say, well, I'm going to hire somebody at $7.25. And the people going, well, why would I do that? I can get $15 at McDonald's. It's dumb. So you're competing against other people with or without COLA. And that also builds into the compression that the contractor advised that we built into. People can change jobs. They can do all kinds of things. You have to take into consideration your across the board stuff as opposed to just locking in a given position. That's going to get you right back where you're trying to get away from.
Sebastian.
I know 2 years, we dealt with this with the road department 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We said we had a variety of meetings trying to find a way
Some of the employees came.
trying to find a way that, to create this salary separation.
Mhm.
So Squire Moore has talked about it. I'm sure prior to that, he talked about it here at court. We talked about it as a group. So, I certainly understand the need to do this because so.
Remember, the administrative code is just a document, and it can change if it doesn't work, if it's not right, if it's not effective, then you come back and you change it.
But I think what we'll get the language and we'll look at it, and that's what we tweak, we're talking higher level.
Concepts.
Right, but before I start editing the admin code, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Because it takes quite a bit of work to start
Imagine.
editing that code.
Yes.
So is everybody wants to see something done with that? Is that correct?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think it's too unwieldy and
Tamara needs some directions.
I say, write something up, we'll look at it.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Write something up. Okay,
Okay.
there's a consensus to write something up.
Okay.
Majority.
All right. The next one is to adopt the pay structure that the Johansson Group put together. And that can be with or without title changes. That really wasn't pertinent. What our current admin code has is a different scale than what is laid out by the Johansson Group. It's like a 1A, a 2A, and a 1H, I believe, and so forth. We have more complex scale that's been provided by the Johansson Group. So what we used a couple of courts ago to implement the salary changes is not consistent with what's in the admin code.
Like those that were underpaid, that were under the minimum.
Yes.
Tamara, you know where in our admin code it is, the old one?
Let's see here. Yes.
Well, I mean, the admin code, I'm sorry. Just our current one, I guess.
It should be 30.049. I'm guessing off the top of my head.
Betty, do you know?
In the old code or the codification?
We should all be working from the new codified code.
All the comments I made were on the old code. Those
None of those
20 odd
sections,
pages of
right?
stuff that's still hanging out there. My stuff's been out there.
It doesn't have the compensation rates in there. On 49.
30 point what?
It doesn't have the 30.049.
Mhm.
It does not have the compensation
Oh, here it is.
rates in there. Betty, do you know?
It's not page numbered. I don't, it don't have page numbers on it.
No, but it has section numbers.
It is, yeah.
Section numbers, yeah.
Timber just told you, 30.049.
Yes, but I said approximately, okay?
Doesn't have
Oh.
the-
Right.
Pay plan administration.
So I'm not sure where that scale is actually located. It's just around the pay plan.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the salary scale?
Yeah,
Yes,
It's not in the code. That was adopted separately. The
it
salary-
wasn't,
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. I can clarify this. Hold on. The salary scale actually was not put in the administrative code at that time in 2017, but the classifications is in the code. That's why you're not seeing the salary scale in the code.
there are the classifications.
Where?
Yes.
the classifications. Okay, that's what we're.
I'm going through the whole book here. There's no page number, so you're gonna have to give me a minute. I'm looking. I thought you meant the salary scale. I apologize.
I'm talking about what's currently in the code to amend that to be consistent with,
30.098 is a classification plan.
Oh, okay.
Which position permanent classes, yeah. And the classification plan is 30.098. I guess.
Wait.
Civil duties, responsibilities, class series.
yes, the judge found it. So go to, it's 30.100 classification of employees, just towards the back. And it has the grade 1A, grade 2A, grade 1H, 2H, and so forth. So with what we went by on the last modification of salaries was not this scale. So we're kind of working with both. So I just suggest that we update that scale, remove this possibly from the code, however you all want to fix it, to be consistent.
Please.
30.100.
Classification of employees.
Ah, okay, I was in toward the back. I mean, I thought you meant the back of the whole.
So Betty and Tamara, you all are recommending that we do away with grade 1H, grade 2H, grade 3H, those classifications?
I'm just recommending that we be consistent with what we are going to use and the admin code.
Yes, right now, Judge, what she's saying is not consistent. The classification is not consistent, and then also the pay range is not consistent. And we need to make sure which pay range to use, because actually currently we have an opening position and there's going to be a couple more, and I need to know exactly what salary to use in the postings. So we just need to clean this up, correct?
Betty Jo, are there currently salaries in this one here?
No,
So we're gonna add that to the,
no, we will just modify where it says grade 1A, grade 2A, because if we're going to use the Johansson group, that no longer applies. But the salaries are never listed in here.
but she was saying we need to update the salaries somewhere.
Well, that is, yes, you brought that up. That's something separate from what I suggested here. That's a different issue that we'll have to talk about in a minute.
Okay. So the Johansson group defined the grades and you are saying, use their definition instead of what is in here already.
We just need to use one or the other. I don't, to me, I mean, I don't care. I just want it to be consistent. So going forward, everyone knows what
Okay,
grade, level,
that's acceptable.
right.
Judge, what do you think about taking this back to committee? Because this is a big thing. And see, talk it through. That's just me. I don't know if you,
I'm not sure.
What committee are you talking about?
Compensation committee.
conversation.
What are the issues are you?
I don't know if there's any issues. This is just one of the biggest things we've dealt with, I think, in my term at least, and just making sure that we get it right in the admin code, one way or another. Maybe it's not necessary. I don't know. Just want to throw it out there.
I mean, that's fine. I guess really the issue is if you want to define it, maybe we need to say we're either adopting the compensation plan or not adopting the compensation plan. Tamara, do you think that's probably if you get to the crux of it? Because
That would make it easiest if the plan that the Johansson Group submitted, if we adopted that structure, that would make everything a lot simpler going forward. That would clean up this section of the code. And that's why I said you could do it without, I know there were some hangups with the title. So, it could be adopted without changing titles, without adding titles, without adding the mechanic, the heavy equipment operator and the golf manager. It could be taken care of that way also.
but that, if there was an issue, could go back to the last.
Right.
To the compensation committee if those are hangups in it. But otherwise, we're piecemealing a compensation plan. We've already changed people's salaries we gave a 3% additional compensation package this we're giving it start July 1st
We don't have a copy of
And-
everything, do we?
based on this
Johansson
compensation plan
Breakdown.
for
Not
separation.
No, I think
Okay.
that-
Two,
We just
where
have this first sheet.
We
right?
gave
because that race.
5 or 6 employees an additional raise to raise them up from
So instead of that,
being
grade 1 to 2,
below the minimum. So we're using pieces of the plan, and it would be a lot easier if we just used the plan as opposed to pieces of it, picking and choosing, cherry picking it. I think that's the case here, Tamara.
Okay,
Y'all understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
You know what you've done?
Why didn't we accept the plan? What was the?
Well, I don't know, really. We just said we'll go with the plan, but nobody wanted to use the word accept for some reason.
Oh,
I think it had to do with the titles and the new positions that the Johansson Group.
recommended?
Yes, and I may be misspeaking, but that was my perception of it.
Okay. Well, we're using a plan that we didn't accept. That doesn't sound legal to me.
And also, Court, I need to know what salary ranges to use for positions, because currently we have an opening position that I need to post for, and there's a couple more. So I just need to know what salary range to use for those positions too. That's very, very important right now in order to start advertising for some openings.
Well, the people that are already there, that'd be the same problem we had with the.
Squire Muller, if to try to bring some clarity on this, if you think it's best to go back to compensation committee to talk about it, so be it. I don't care, but we have to have it some direction, or we're just gonna be
Yeah.
out here floundering around, and that's not fair to our employees.
Yes, so we have a vacancy in the planning and zoning department, so we are going to need to address that salary.
Yes,
Yes.
well, give us some clarity, Squire Muller.
How did, what process did you use when you advertised for the treasurer's position?
The old process, because at that time, I don't believe the plan had been accepted yet.
Well, it still hasn't been accepted.
How about when it was sent out?
The
So the
same,
second time? The salary never changed?
Not
No,
that I'm aware
it
of.
was the same.
It was the range, it was a range.
It was a range.
The range never changed from the first time it was advertised to the second time?
No,
Yeah, that's what she said.
Okay, so come on, guys, speak up. What do you want
Yeah,
to
we
do?
got more to do, so.
Yeah, let's speak up. What do you want to do?
You wanna take it back to committee and
I mean, I think I'm okay looking at this, but I think if we're gonna start looking at money and ranges and stuff like that, I'd like that to go back to committee, because I think that could be cumbersome. I don't know if that's just something we're gonna finish today.
All right,
At-
let's
at
just take it back to
4:50.
committee, okay?
I don't
We'll go
think
back
we
to
have a
committee on
choice.
that one. Tambra, okay?
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next one, Tambra.
All right, the next one would be Lambert just passed out. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm skipped one. Charlie
Park
Lewis, the park director, has requested the authority to be able to hire part-time and seasonal only between courts. With the high turnover at the park, by the time he gets an application in, has them interviewed, Betty Jo does the drug test and the background check. That employee's already moved on to another position because court only meets every 3 weeks. So what,
Oh, okay,
maybe
very good.
a solution is to give him that authority only for part-time and seasonal positions to go ahead and hire, and then provide the court at the next meeting with a list to ratify those hires.
Oh. Well, okay.
There's Charlie. Charlie, can you
I
want to speak
wouldn't
to
have a
that?
problem with that on part-time seasons.
Yeah, it's just a long, and good afternoon. Thanks for having me on and taking this request, or at least considering it. It's just, it gets long-winded and cumbersome to hire. You know, we set a budget, you know, and that's where we got to stay within as best we can. But by the time we do advertisements, set up interviews, get those scheduled, have those, get it back to court, and then catch the next court date, sometimes you're looking at 6 weeks. It just gets really long and drawn out. And I just didn't know if there was a way we could streamline it, make it more efficient. It's just an old process that we've had. It's it's nobody's fault, but that's just where we stand right now. But I just didn't know if we could update that process is my request.
Go ahead, Spark Trace.
Charlie, has the work pool, I know that you've touched on adding having like a pool of employees.
Cameras over here.
Yeah, like
Has
that,
that not worked?
like the fire department is, yeah.
Well, we do. It's been depleted, really. I mean, it's been very, very hard to find and keep a pool of employees. Our pool of employees may consist of some applicants that have turned in applications that, if somebody drops out, then we try to plug them in, but we still have to go through that process of, taking those steps with we may have an application, we may have that step taken care of, but then we still got to go through the screens, the background checks, and then the interview, and then catch a court date. So, it's still a weeks long process to plug those in. And if we took applications through a window of time in the early spring or late winter to set these people up, got them on a list, got them checked through their backgrounds and do their drug screens and had them set up, that may speed it up to where, and you guys would obviously always have a list of who's coming and going. I hope you see where I'm coming from. I'm not a great salesperson, but
Charlie, I'm gonna chime in. What we're referring to, basically, the city does the same thing for the part-time and seasonal. Say we have court on Thursday night, Friday, Charlie may lose 3 college kids. Okay. We do have the pool though. We can pull the pool from the applications, but it might be another 3 weeks before we go back to court. Well, then when court approved, it's going to be another week to get their drug screen back. So we're waiting a month for employees. And in the meantime, he's having his full-time employees work overtime.
You don't do the drug screens until the fiscal court votes on the applicant. Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Let's see.
So we could be waiting a month just for the approval. That's what I hope that helped,
I
Charlotte.
kind of going off Squire Booth there. I'm fine with it, but as long as the drug test and the background check are clear,
Mhm.
I'm fine with Charlie and HR going ahead and doing the hire, as long as that's done prior.
And that's our prior policy now, so that's no
Uh,
problem.
yeah. And it stays within his budget that he's allowed for the year, obviously.
I was gonna ask a question about the budget, just to ensure that we don't add, that we have a sense that we're gonna add 7 part-time employees as we go into the peak season, and 6 seasonals. I'm making up numbers now. And come to find out, we add 25 part-time, and we, how,
They need to maintain a number.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, by maintaining
You know,
a number,
I have to have I'm concerned about getting a sense of that, because certainly, things could pick up across the country for utilization of park services. So, there has to be some direction there. I mean, there has to be some
right,
direction.
so previously there was a number and that didn't work out. So that got changed to allow him just to stay within the budget,
Yeah.
because he could have 20 people just working less hours
Yeah.
than 10 people working more hours. And Charlie's always been able to manage his employees because, one may be able to work 40 hours a week and one only 5 hours a week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the governance structure is for that, if it is,
It's the
know,
Well, the check
certainly-
and balance would be that he has to bring it back to court at some point in time. After, even if they've been hired, and if he's out of line, then the court says, the standard question to Charlie when he brings it back is, or Charlie should say to the court, this is in my budget, this is within the salary range, and so there's not an issue. As long as he says that, and as long as he's acting that way, then the court should be fine with it. It should be it shouldn't be an issue, right?
Right.
Charlie, don't you, isn't that what you're trying to say?
Yes, yeah, that, and you, like you all mentioned, we just recently hired some summer help, and some of those younger fellas, can only work certain hours a week, whereas I may have a retired individual that's wanting 30 to 40 hours. Each and every employee is different. We try to get them in here and get them as much work as we can, but they, especially with the students, they've got vacations and travel ball, and the list goes on. And then some of them are available anytime you need them. So, I mean, there's no 2 employees the same. So, I mean, but I do understand that, you don't want to hire 25, 30 people. At the end of the day, it's staying within that budget number.
That's the
thing.
important
Budget
aspect.
is the-
Right.
All right,
And we
Right.
could change the wording to say, to require Charlie to provide the court with a list on the agenda to ratify that approval.
I mean,
okay,
that's
Right.
just a key thing for us as the
Yeah.
fiscal and the financial responsibility that we all
Absolutely.
have.
no question. All right,
That's all I'm trying to
let's go
bring
to the next item, the last item. because we've got a Meeting coming up.
We're not gonna have time.
Well, just let Lambert bring it up.
Good job, let's say something.
No, let Lambert bring it up.
Okay, 30.055. It says if the county judge executive determines that a new hire is best interest of the county, he or she may advertise and fill the vacancy selected most qualified candidate from the applicants received. I would like to assure that we get the best employees to advertise, strike that part that I just read, and advertise postings for vacant positions shall be posted both internally and externally simultaneously. And then we would strike D,
So
rather than,
we had an issue with this a while back, and we went the other way, and we didn't post it. We only posted it internally, and then we had an issue about it several years ago, remember? And that's when we changed it to, Rick said you can do it either one way or the other.
The court was concerned at one point for increased mobility within existing employees. to give them a shot if they wanted to try for a different job before it was advertised fully. Again, to facilitate some internal candidates who wanted to move, or the court was concerned that there might be internal candidates who wanted to move before it was advertised outside. And that's the compromise the court reached.
How
Sure.
long ago was that? Because what I'm
That
understanding
was
from,
about 10 years ago.
from Squire
But
Moore.
It was pretty much mismanaged.
Okay, okay. That was before me.
Yeah, it
I
was.
just know one of the things that I asked about, you know, when I wrote that long list of things, this was one of them as well, because it sounds like from what Squire Moore says and what I understand from this, and I know what I have brought up, wherever the best candidate is, they absolutely could be internal. But we want the
Sure.
best candidate.
Yeah, they know the county and.
That's
and,
exactly right. They
you know
already
that-
have a jump start.
Yeah, they got a jump start on
Potentially.
anyone coming in, so
Absolutely.
they would have the
I think
advantage.
we want the best candidate wherever they come from. And if it's internal,
They
Just like
wanted
we
to
did
put that
the,
in writing, so
just
that
like we did the treasurer's position. We,
right.
recruitment would be.
So let me give you a scenario, and I don't want to beat this horse anymore than we have to. So what the scenario would be is this, and he's sitting right behind you, or he's sitting right here. So if
that's where,
John Mitchell were to leave, why would we advertise all over the state for a road superintendent when we have a assistant superintendent that spent the years, that knows this thing? Why would we advertise externally when we know a very good candidate and probably the best, and to me would be the best candidate?
that's what I'm saying. Either one of these, I think, would come to the top. Even doing it internally. and externally.
But why would you, I mean, why would you?
You could be
That-
devil's advocate and let's say Steven's not a good guy,
Yeah,
and he's just been here.
Well, if he's not,
I-
Yeah,
if
I'm
he's
just saying.
not, then that's.
I'm not
you know,
saying-
No, yeah, I'm just being devil's advocate. I'm trying to help.
And I'm gonna say this to you.
Yeah.
You're running for county judge.
Yeah.
It's you are going to know the employees.
Mhm.
You don't now do, but you will, as a county judge, you're gonna know the employees. If he's not the best candidate, then way it is written, you have the authority. You can say, well, let's just do this externally. If he's the best candidate, why waste anybody's time? Why go through a process of having 5 interviews and going through it, and you know that this is the best guy, and you're wasting 4 other people's time because you're not gonna hire him, because you're gonna hire him.
True.
And that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
mean, what you're wasting.
I'm just listening to Lambert. He's been here a long time,
I
so,
know Lambert's
yeah,
been a long time, but there is the
yeah.
other side of the
There's-
coin
there's
that,
always
that
is.
I see, and I know that is the truth.
Right.
We did not advertise for this guy's position for everybody in Kentucky to apply to be assistant fire chief in our fire department, because we knew that we had a pool of applicants that were very qualified. So why would we say we have to do externally? So why would we have to say, why would we do that? That's my point. And that's because I sit in this chair here and I know who these guys are. And I'm trying to defend them because it's real, I don't want to waste
Yeah.
anybody's
Yeah, yeah.
time. That's what it would be. And you know, it's not fair to you or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
who have applied, and well, we're just going through the process because we did it externally. And that's what I'm saying, what would happen, and that's not fair.
It also serves as motivation. So if he knows he has the opportunity to move up,
Right.
then he's gonna, do his best every day.
But that same coin is, if you know you're gonna be up against a pool of 20 candidates, you're absolutely gonna do your best level best consistently. That it's automatically not handed to you. And I think that's where it sounds like that's where it's coming from.
No, but
I don't think that's a good measurement of your-
I'm just saying, everybody's offering
Yeah.
things, and I'm not trying to say one is better than another. I'm just trying to see the entire playing field here for this issue. Not saying one thing's better than another.
Well, there is better than the other. And I'll tell you how you got to do it. It's the way you say do it. If you want to say everything on any open positions wide open, you put it out for scale. And I think that's wonderful. That gets the 20-year, 5-year position, whatever. But you eliminate the preference for internal candidates moving out. If you have that, then you tend to focus on the internal candidates. The question is, you got to pick one or the other. If you just want to say it's open for everybody, no problem. But you got to cite that with specificity. And I think that was Lambert's point.
Right in writing, that's why it's put there. Everybody felt like
All right,
it was more fair.
let's hold that one. You were right, Tamara. Let's hold that one and we'll bring it up. We'll have it on the agenda on our 30th meeting. And now we'll move forward on the other ones. Well, Tamara, we'll need to do a compensation meeting, and it is now, if that's okay,
So,
we'll stop right here with this one. Yes, Betty? Yes,
I was
Betty?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask, if you all schedule a compensation committee meeting, will you please get a benefits meeting back to back with the compensation? We've been trying for over 2 weeks and this is real crucial. I just wanted to ask if we could have those meetings back to back because we have the same squires on those meetings. Thank you.
Hey, that'd be great.
What are we talking about?
Have you,
I've responded back. Dates I can use.
Squire Muller, I
What are
think that has
the,
Squire.
what's our agenda? I'm just
I'm
trying to
not
figure out
sure.
what the agenda is that it's.
I don't know. I just know it's
Absolutely
time.
drop dead critical.
It's time
That's
I
what I'm
know
just
that,
asking.
our insurance carrier has something that needs to be, they need to talk to us about saving money in the real near future.
But it's time
That's on the
sensitive.
benefit.
I talked to him. We're looking at 29th. He was gonna try to get you and Pam on the same schedule because you had the other interviews going. So if we can make the 29th work, that's what he was gonna try to do.
Okay, so
He was gonna call
Jamie's gonna
Pam,
get in
yeah.
touch with Pam. Okay,
He probably already has.
okay.
Okay, all right, Tambra, you say that there's a lot of people that want to come in, so
That is
so
what
go
I've
ahead,
been
let's
told.
bring it in.
Anything over here?
We're gonna take
Can we take a
Andrew, we're gonna take
Yeah.
a 5-minute recess.
Yes,
At
sir.
5:10, we'll start.